Hello friends. Most people approach CAT exam as if it were a tiger or a big cat, and therefore they are nervous, anxious, almost scared of what they're going to see. But my contention is that this big cat, the tiger, can be tamed. The only requirement, particularly for quant section, is not be in a hurry to write down equations and start working on the problem. To do some thinking, different ways of solving the problem, so-called shortcuts. And what they do is that they make the difficult problem easy and the easy problem trivial. So I'm going to demonstrate this with the help of 11 questions of quant section of slot 1. Let us begin this with a problem in arithmetic. Two friends had some marbles with them, and the ratio was 4:9 initially, and Lalita gave some of her marbles to Raju. She had more than Raju, obviously, and the ratio then became 5:6. They're asking what fraction of her original number of marbles was given by Lalita to Raju. These were the options. Instead of writing down equations saying that Raju had 4x and Lalita had 9x, and finally Raju had 5y and Lalita had 6y, let us understand first that the total number of marbles with the two together did not change with this transaction. And so initially the total must have been a multiple of 4 plus 9. Remember 4x plus 9x? So that total is 13x, and therefore the total must be a multiple of 9 initially, based on the initial information. If the total hasn't changed and the ratio has now become 5:6, then this total also must be a multiple of 5 plus 6 or 11. Given these two, can you not think of a number which is divisible both by 11 and 13, the so-called LCM of these two numbers, 143 for the total number of marbles with them? If that is so, then Lalita, who had 9x out of 13x or 9 out of 13 of this number 143, will have 99 marbles. Originally she would have 99 marbles. What fraction of her original number of marbles? So this 99 will be in the denominator of all these options. The only option which has a factor of 99 in the denominator is option 1. So that is the correct option. Now if you do not believe that it can be so simple, then you might work out the final number of marbles with Lalita, which is going to be 6 over 11 times 143, which is 78. So she must have given 21 marbles to Raju, and the fraction will then come out to be 21 times 21 over 99, which is the same as 7 over 33. But you did not even have to proceed to that final step. You could have chosen the option. You're lucky, I admit, but then you make your own luck as well. So what is the learning? The first and foremost is understanding what the transaction has changed or not changed. The transaction in this case did not change the total number of marbles. Then to be able to work with small integers, LCM of 11 and 13 for example, and then to be very efficient, you can use the options to come to the answer. You could have worked it out all the way, you would not have lost too much time, but whatever. Let us look at this problem in arithmetic on mixtures and allegations. Two paints are mixed, A and B. 10 liters of the mixture is formed and sold for 264, making a profit of 10%. Paint A costs 8 rupees more than paint B per liter, and we are being asked what is the highest possible cost of paint B. The condition that the amount of B in the mixture does not exceed that of A is not something that we see very often. So what can we do with such a condition? The options are like this. Before we go to the options or the solution, let us at least work out what this means. If they sell at 264 making a profit of 10%, then what is the cost price? If selling price is 264 and profit is 10%, we know that cost price would be 264 times 100 divided by 110, which is 240. Remember, it's for 10 liters, and so for 1 liter the cost price is 24. The mixture cost price is 24. Now, the highest value in the options is 26, which is, suppose that is the cost of paint B, then A would cost 26 plus 8, 34 rupees. Do you think two components, one costing 26 and the other costing 34, can give you a mixture that can cost 24 less than any one of the two? Impossible. So option 1 is out. What about option 2? If B costs 22, then A would cost 30. Now we can set up the allegation. The mixture cost is 24, B costs 22, A costs 30. The diagonal differences 2 and 6, and this is the ratio of the quantities. So if A is used 1 liter in the mixture, B would be 3 liters. B's quantity amount is more than A, and therefore this option is not going to work. What's the third highest? 20. We set up the allegation again. If B costs 20, A would cost 28. The two diagonal differences are 4 and 4, telling us that the quantities of A and B are identical. Does that satisfy this condition? The amount of B in the mixture does not exceed that of A? Yes, indeed, it does. So the correct option is 20. The answer is 20. So what is the learning from a question like this? Do practice the rule of allegation. It does some simplify things. It takes you away from equations. The second is, do not get confused by conditions that you haven't seen, and use the options as much as possible. We started with the highest option, then the second highest, and the third highest. We got our answer without doing too much work. Now let us look at this problem on time and work. A relatively lengthy problem, a story. Two people working at different rates, and they do a job in a particular manner. Finally, the question is, in how many days can B alone finish the entire job? Options are given, and whenever a direct question like that is asked, it is actually an invitation for you to use the options to your advantage. Let me demonstrate this. The first line says that B needs 25% more time to finish a job than A does, which means B does 80% of the work compared to A per day. Which means if B does 4 units of work per day, then A does 5 units of work per day. Now, if you look at the options, the number that strikes you as a friendly number out of these is 20. So, if B takes 20 days to do the job alone, that means the work consists of 4 units per day, which is his rate of work, times 20 days, 80 units. If 80 units is the entire job, then A worked alone till half the job is done, which means A did 40 units out of these 80 at the rate of 5 units per day, and therefore 40 divided by 5 would be the number of days that A has taken to complete 50% of the work, which is then 8 days. At the end, B works alone to complete remaining 5%. What is 5% of 80 is 4 units. So B does 4 units alone at the end, and his rate of work is 4 units anyway. So he will take 1 day to complete the job at the end. Now what has happened in between? A working alone and B working alone. A and B together have done 80 minus 40 that A has done alone, minus 4 that B has done alone equal to 36 units of work. But together, how many units do? They do 4 and they do 5. And therefore, they do 9 units of work per day. And therefore, together, they must have taken 4 days. So what is the total then? 8 units of A alone, 4 days together, then 1 day B alone, which is 13, which is exactly what is given, that they take 13 days. And that's the answer. So what's the learning from a problem on time and work? It's always you divide the job into units. So like we did here, the job was divided into 80 subunits. Avoiding fractions. Now what do I mean by avoiding fractions? If you had taken any other option, then 5% of that job would have come out as a fraction. It would have meant that B has taken fractional number of days. It's an indication that you are not on the right path. Maybe there is another option which is friendlier. And so using the simplest option first is one of the tricks of solving these problems in a time efficient manner. Remember, we did not write any equations. All we did was examine the option, and we started with the simplest option and got our answer. Now let us look at this problem on time and distance. Again, a topic from arithmetic. This problem is not very difficult, but even then you can make it even simpler by looking at the options. Because what they're asking for is what is the speed of Partha in kilometers per hour. The distance between the two towns A and B is 60 kilometers, and all the 4 options are friendly in the sense they divide 60, and so you will get a nice integer for the time that Partha takes to cover this distance. So let us start with the first option. If Partha's speed is in fact 4 kilometers per hour, then he would take 15 hours to cover this distance. It means Narayan, who takes 4 hours less, will cover it in 11 hours. The other piece of information is that the difference between the time that Narayan takes and the time that Partha takes to cover half the distance is 2 hours. If Partha takes 15 hours to cover the full distance, then he will reach halfway in 7.5 hours. The difference between 11 and 7.5 is 3.5, which is not 2, which we want it to be 2. So 4 cannot be the right answer. If the difference is 3.5 and we want it to be 2, I think it tells you that Partha must be traveling at a higher speed. So instead of going to 6, let us talk about 5. So if Partha's speed is 5 kilometers, he takes 12 hours, Narayan takes 8 hours, Partha takes 6 hours to reach halfway, the difference is 2, and we are done. So what's the learning? If the question is direct, use options. Please remember, we did not write any equations whatsoever. That is how you tame this big cat. Arithmetic section of any exam generally has a question or two on mixtures and allegations. This is a question from slot 1. 2 types of tea are mixed, A and B, and then sold at a profit of 10% in one case and 5% in the other case at a price of 40 rupees per kg. They're asking what is the ratio of the cost prices of these 2 types of tea. Options are given. So how do you approach this? If sales price is 40, selling price is 40, profit is 10%, then we know how to work out the cost price. 40 times 100 divided by 110. Please do not calculate this number. They really haven't asked what is the cost price of A or of any of the mixtures. So let us leave it at that. In the second case, the profit is only 5%, and so the cost price of the second mixture is 40 times 100 divided by 105. Now, in the first case, when the profit was 10%, 3 kgs of A were mixed with 2 kgs of B. And so, if we take A as the cost price of A and B as the cost price of B, then the cost price of this mixture is obviously 3A plus 2b, that's the total cost of the two types of t's, divided by the quantities 3 plus 2, which is 5. In the second case, the cost price will similarly work out to 2a plus 3b divided by 2 plus 3, which is again 5. What they're asking for is the ratio of a and b. Obviously, this cost price 3a plus 2b divided by 5 is the same as 40 times 100 by 110, and the second cost price is related to 40 times 100 by 105. If you take the two ratios, the right hand side ratio and the left hand side ratio, see how many things begin to cancel. 40, 100, 5, and so it becomes a very simple looking fraction now. And even 105 over 110 is nothing but 2122. You simplify this, rearrange, and you end up with 19b equal to 24a, or a to b must be 19 to 24. What's the learning? The learning is very simple. Please do not calculate the intermediate values. Let them be, and be patient. In an arithmetic question, you will get the right answer even though the options may not look very friendly. Be patient, you will get the answer if you do not do extra work. Let us look at this question on geometry. There are two squares, ABCD and EFGH, and the ratio of the areas of these two squares is 62.5%. EFGH is such that the points EFGH are on four sides of the square, and so drawing the diagram is the first step in solving this problem. Options are given. Let's draw the diagram. This is my bigger square ABCD. And if EFGH has to be a square, which is of area 62.5%, and they have also told us that CG is longer than EB, so EFGH are not midpoints of the four sides of the original square. The new square, the smaller square, will look something like this, EFGH. And in this case, we have CG is longer than EB. So be careful about how you naming the vertices. So CG is longer than EB. What they are really asking is what is the ratio of EB to CG. Now you can see from this diagram, because these are two squares, one inside the other, that CG is nothing but or equal to in length to FB, and EB is nothing but equal to CF. So how can we approach this problem? The usual way would be to assume that BF is X and EB is Y, and we are being asked the ratio of Y is to X. We'll avoid working with algebra and writing down equations, so let us take the help of the options. And the friendliest option in terms of simplest of numbers seems to be 1:3. So let's start with that. So then EB will come out as 1 and BF will come out as 3. As we have seen, CF is equal to EB, so CF is 1, and the entire side BC is then 3 plus 1 or 4 units. The area of ABCD therefore becomes 4 squared or 16. How can we get the area of EFGH? By knowing the side of the square, EF for example. This is the hypotenuse of a right angle triangle with sides 1 and 3. And so the hypotenuse of this triangle is going to be square root of 3 squared plus 1 squared, or square root of 10. If that is so, then the area of this square is going to be 10. And the ratio of the smaller to the larger is going to be 10:16, is nothing but 62.5. Bingo, we have the answer. So what's the learning from a simple problem like this? Drawing a neat diagram. In fact, CAT has stopped giving geometry diagrams in general. Every geometry problem you have to draw the diagram. So to be able to draw a diagram helpful to yourself is one of the key skills now. Understanding the symmetry of the diagram, we did not have to prove that the four triangles that were formed were congruent. We could see it, we could feel it, and that's an important skill as well, not to indulge in proofs. And then we use the options, starting with the simplest, avoiding writing down equations altogether. And in general, this would be called as converting all that algebra, x's and y's, to simple arithmetic. And therefore, we can get the answer very, very fast when options are given. Another question from geometry, on geometry from CAT 18 slot 1. Area of a parallelogram is given, lengths of two sides are given, and an area of a particular triangle is asked. Options are given. So we would begin by drawing a diagram, ABCD as a parallelogram, and the length of CD and AD are given. So one would write CD as 9 and AD as 16. And when we drop a perpendicular from A onto CD, the triangle APD would be formed, and they're asking what is the area of this triangle APD. All that we know about APD is the length of this side AD and that it's a right angle triangle. We do not know the base DP, nor do we know the height AP. What can we do with the information that's given? Area of a parallelogram is 72, which is nothing but the base times the height. But the height could be written as AD sine of this angle D. This is very similar to the triangle formula where we say area of a triangle is 1/2 AB sine C. If we use this, and remember that parallelogram is nothing but two congruent triangles, then we know that the area of a parallelogram would be AD times CD times sine of angle D. So 72 is this, the two lengths are known, and therefore we find the sine of angle D is 1/2, which means D is 30 degrees. If D is 30 degrees, then the triangle APD is now a 30, 60, 90 triangle. And in such a triangle, the smallest side, which is AP, is going to be 1/2 of the hypotenuse, which means AP is 8, and PD or DP is √3 times that, or 8√3. What's the area of APD then? 1/2, 8 times 8√3, 32√3, option 4. So what's the learning from a simple problem like this? Drawing a neat diagram, remembering the formula for area of a triangle and hence parallelogram, and the properties of 30, 60, 90 triangle. Not too much to remember. Now let us look at a problem on algebra from CAT 18. A particular equation is given, not very friendly looking, and then they are asking what is the value of u plus 3v. Options are given. Notice that cannot be determined is not one of the options. So that means the value of u plus 3v can be determined just based on one single equation. So that's a good start to notice all that. Let us start by expanding the square of three terms, the second bracket. U minus 2v minus 1 whole squared. If you're patient, you can expand this as u squared plus 4v squared plus 1, etc., etc. And if you now substitute that and simplify the left-hand side expression, it would look like this. The right-hand side expression obviously is just a distribution of negative 4v over u plus v, which is that. Since right-hand side and left-hand side are equal, you can cancel the term which is 4uv, negative 4uv, and rearrange it to look something like this. 2u squared minus 2u plus 1 plus 8v squared plus 4v equal to 0. Now if you really have to come to a unique value of u and v, that's a big hint that this particular equation should be nothing but a sum of two squares, the sum of two squares equal to 0. Because none of these squares can be negative, that means each square must be 0, and that is how you will get the unique value of u and v. So by dividing this side, which consists of 5 terms, into 2 squares, we will get the 2 values. We will start by completing the square here. 2u square minus 2u plus 1. If I take 2 as a common factor, then I begin by u square minus u. Now to complete this square, I need 1 by 4 in the parentheses. So it means I have used 1/2 out of this 1 to complete this square, and the other half will now be used to complete this square, ultimately giving me this. 2 times u square minus u plus 1 by 4 plus 2 times this equal to 0, which means these 2 squares add up to 0, which means u is 1/2 and v is negative 1 by 4. And therefore I have a unique value as expected of u plus 3v, which is going to be option 2. So what's the learning from this algebra problem? The learning is you should know expansion of squares, you should know how to complete the squares, and you must remember that a square of a real number cannot be negative. Let us look at a problem on what is called as functions. A function is defined here as minimum of these 2 independent functions, 2x squared and 52 minus 5x, and then we are being asked what is the maximum possible value of f of x. For a question like this, it's important that you are able to draw a diagram. The first diagram would be what is the curve for 2x squared. 2x squared will look like a parabola, which is shown here. 52 minus 5x is a linear function, so it's a line. It will look like this because it has a negative slope and a positive intercept. So this is 52 minus 5x. Now, what do they mean by minimum of these 2? It means that if I choose a value of x, suppose something like this, then the minimum of these 2 points, this point as well as this point, so this will be the point which will be chosen for that value of x. In general, what it means is the graph of f of x looks like this. Some part of parabola in the beginning and then the straight line. Obviously, they are asking us what is the maximum value, what is the maximum value of this function at this point in time. So we must know at what point do these 2 curves intersect. It means 2x squared must be equal to 52 minus 5x. We get a quadratic, we factorize it, and x can be either negative 13 by 2 or x can be 4. They have said that x is a positive real number. So this negative 13 by 2 is not admissible. X is equal to 4. 2x squared will be equal to 32. Simple, huh? So what's the learning? To be able to draw a neat diagram. Understanding the definition of x, that we could figure out that x was parabola in the beginning and then a straight line, and then to be able to solve the quadratic equation and not make any so-called stupid mistake at the end. Cat 18 slot 1 had 2 problems on logarithms. Logarithm is a very popular topic with the examiners. And if you understand the relationship between logarithms and exponents, everything becomes very simple. So let us look at the basics of logarithms. If some number b to the power m is equal to x, then we say that it can be written as log of x to the power b, to the base b, is m. Let us explain this with the help of some examples. If 2 to the power 3 is 8, then log of 8 to the base 2 is 3. Another example, slightly difficult, slightly different. If square root of 2 or 2 to the power half is approximately 1.42, then we can also say that log of 1.42 to the base 2 is 0.5. Knowing just this much is sufficient to solve what one would consider as very difficult problems from Cat 18, slot 1. First problem. What is x equal to, where 2 to the power x is given as 3 to this crazy power 3 to the power log of 2 to the base 5. Please understand that this log of 2 to the base 5 is just a number, and therefore this 3 to some number is also a number. If you had a scientific calculator with you, you would have been able to calculate this and therefore find out the value of x. But we do not have a scientific calculator. So what can we do? How can we proceed? You can also solve this by means of the rules of logarithm, and it will take enormous amount of time. It is quite difficult. Change of base, formula 2-3 times, etc. So can we avoid all that? Let us see. These are the options given. So 2 to the power x is this. Let us estimate this exponent, log of 2 to the base 5. 2 is less than 5, so obviously this value is less than 1. We have some idea about square root of 5. Square root of 5 is approximately 2.2 or slightly more than 2.2. So we can say that m, this exponent here, must be slightly less than 0.5. If that is so, then 3 to the power 0.5 or nothing but square root 3 is 1.73. So now we have a handle on the right hand side. The right hand side is more or less slightly less than 1.73. 2 to the power x is slightly less than 1.73. Obviously it means that x is less than 1. If x is less than 1, coming to these options, can you see that option number 3, where 9 is greater than 5 and so log is going to be greater than 1. Option 4, where 8 is also greater than 5, it's going to be more than 1. Option 1 plus log of some number to the base 5, and this number is more than 1, and therefore this is a positive quantity, this whole thing, and so we can rule out option 1, and option 2 is the correct answer. What's the learning? Understanding the basic definition of logarithm, the connection between logarithm and exponents. Knowledge of perfect squares and cubes of small numbers. We're not talking about squares of 47 and cube of 121 or anything like that. Very small numbers. And using that understanding of perfect squares and cubes, can we estimate the log of a number to any base, and then can we use the options to zero in on the correct answer. Let us look at the second problem of the same slot of Cat 18. The second problem was, if log of 81 to the base 12 is equal to p, then what is this quantity? 3 times something in the parentheses. How can we do this? Again, options were given. So let us apply the same technique here. Can we estimate p? P is log of 81 to the base 12. Obviously 81 is between 12 to the power 1 and 12 to the power 2, and therefore p must be between 1 and 2. But let us estimate it slightly better. Instead of saying that p is equal to approximately 1.5. Suppose log of some number to the base 12 is 1.5. Then by the basic definition we know n will be 12 to the power 1.5, or 12 times square root of 12, which is approximately 42. And Since 42 and 81 are quite far apart, we may say that P is between 1.5 and 2, and now let us estimate that as 1.7 instead of fine-tuning it further. So we have the value of P, or estimate of P, as 1.7. Now can we calculate the number that is given on the right hand side, this number, 3 times 4 minus P over 4 plus P. Substituting for P, this is what we get. Evaluating that, it will be 2.3 over 1.9, or approximately 1.2. So which of these options is 1.2 is the question. Option number 1 is obviously square of 4 to the base 4, that's eliminated. Option number 3, we already have seen that this must be 3, so this is not 1.2. Now which of these two options, option 2 or option 4, will be equal to 1.2? 8 is slightly more than 6, 16 is far more than 6. In fact, you can see that this is going to be approximately 1.5 and therefore can be eliminated. Option 2 is the right answer. So this is how you can tame this big cat called CAT examination and make it very simple for yourself. If you understand the basics, can do some estimations and therefore solve even the difficult problems in a very time efficient manner. I hope you have liked this video. I hope you will subscribe to this channel and watch out for further videos on solutions of quant section as well as DILR from both the slots of CAT. Thank you very much.